Menopause is an inevitable period in a woman's life. It signals the cessation of the childbearing years, and the time also brings about unpleasant side effects such as weight gain, which is often difficult to manage and can lead to further health complications if not addressed. To chat to us about the reasons behind menopause weight gain and some of the ways it can be dealt with is nutritional therapist and NLP practitioner Nikki Robertson. Welcome back, Nikki. Great
Thanks,
to have you
Mike.
here. Now, Nikki, why is weight gain such a I don't want to say big part of menopause, but it's certainly something that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, it does. Firstly, I think let's look at it in a bigger context. So in the Western world, we're resistant to aging. You know, if you look at the Far East, especially places like India, even in Italy, and those sort of places, it's a natural progression of life.
Yes.
You know, women almost embrace the next phase of life.
Right.
It's only in the West where we go, well, I want to have the body that I had in my 20s when I'm 50, which, if you think about it, is ludicrous, because you're never going to look like a 20-year-old when you're 50.
Unless you pay a lot of money.
But you don't want to either. It looks weird.
Yeah.
So, you know, the striving towards something which is not natural is a problem, and it causes a lot of stress.
Right.
And stress in and of itself leads us to comfort eating. It leads us to drinking. It leads us to crash dieting, because when we think we should look and act a certain way and we don't because that is the social norm, the self-esteem drops.
Right.
So that invites all sorts and kinds of problems, which ultimately will lead to a place where we find resistant fat loss. We've also got to look at what you did prior to menopause. So if you were the kind of person who binge ate, for example, but did a lot of exercise to get rid of the weight, that's going to play a part down the line. That is going to make it really hard to lose weight in menopause.
Absolutely. And how much of an impact is the hormonal side of things in the weight gain? Because obviously, as you say, again, if you've always done something a certain way, but your hormonal system was able to cope, and then suddenly it's not, but you carry on, you're on a bit of a hiding to nothing.
So how we know we're in menopause is when the ovaries start producing estrogen and progesterone. And the hormones are the switches that determine whether or not we store fat or use it for energy. So when we have a natural decline in hormones, things happen. Now, nature has no need for us past childbearing years. That is nature. Whether you are a lion or a monkey or a human, once you can no longer provide to the system doesn't need you, so it will create a system, or it'll change a system that you go into a natural decline. So what happens with estrogen decline is we see a bone loss, for example. There's other reasons for bone loss, nutritional reasons, but we see a decline in the physical body. Now, we can replace that naturally, we can replace that synthetically, but there's a price to pay. Now, not everybody who loses or stops producing estrogen and progesterone has negative side effects. It doesn't affect everybody. Many women have hot flashes, and that is a result of low estrogen, but it's also a big stress component. So if that woman is very anxious or very stressed out, or has unrealistic expectations of herself or what's going on in her environment, what's going on in her mind, those hot flashes are going to be exacerbated. So it's never just because there's no estrogen. There's usually a bigger picture at play there. So it's not always necessary to replace hormones. For some people it is necessary. For some it's really dangerous. And I think, again, you've got to really consult with your doctor. A gynecologist is one person you might go to. An endocrinologist who specializes in hormones is probably a very good idea to go and speak to somebody like that, and understand, you know, your health history first. So if you have a health history of, like, say, blood clots or estrogen dominant cancers, the last thing you want to do is interfere with hormones, especially at a certain age. But there's many ways of dealing with that, and it comes back to eating well, it comes back to stress management, it comes back to getting enough sleep, and it comes back to finding a purpose in life.
Absolutely.
And very often women post-menopause, their kids have gone, they're not working, a lot of them, or they are in an insecure career situation, and their purpose and passion is changing or diminishing, and they're not thinking about what I'm going to do in the next 10 years. And that causes depression, and it causes anxiety.
Yeah. So from what I'm understanding is that it's not that the weight gain is directly related to the fact that your body is changing. It's the influencing factors around all of this that seem to be playing a role.
A big part. So what happens when we age is we lose bone mass, but we also lose muscle mass. It's called sarcopenia. It's also a natural function of aging. What happens if we were cavemen, we would also have a diminished enzyme production in the gut. So our ability to break down protein and turn that into muscle cells or into amino acids to feed muscle is diminished. Again, a natural function of aging.
Right.
So if we want to be really natural, we've got to give up to the fact or give in to the fact that we're going to lose muscle, we're going to lose bone, we're going to lose our teeth, and we will die.
Okay.
You know, that's natural. But if we want to work sort of within a natural context or a healthier context, but limit the speed at which we're hitting that decline, you've got to pay particular attention to what you're eating.
Okay.
And protein is the only thing that breaks down into amino acids and becomes muscle mass.
Right.
So when we have enough protein in our diets and we create what we call a positive nitrogen balance, our muscle mass increases, and muscle is an endocrine organ.
Yes.
It makes us more insulin sensitive, and insulin is a hormone that triggers fat storage.
Okay.
So when you have high insulin or you're insulin resistant, you probably have a greater percentage body fat to muscle, and when that happens, you're more inflamed. So you're more susceptible to disease, but you're more susceptible to storing body fat around the midsection.
Okay.
And almost all women experiencing menopausal weight gain have got a spare tire that they never had before, and that is insulin.
Yes.
So when one of the hormones goes out, they take everything with it.
System goes off
the
balance.
whole system goes off balance.
Yeah.
So the only thing you can really do is control what you eat, when you eat,
Okay.
quality of your sleep, and what goes on in your mind.
Right.
And there's a limit to what a doctor can do for you, you know, in cases like this, but making sure that you're getting in enough of the right stuff and that you're digesting it so it can become muscle, which is the organ of youth.
Yes.
And it becomes skin cells, and it becomes, you know, all these things.
It becomes your body.
It becomes you.
Yeah.
If you give your body the resources, you've got a better chance of aging well.
Okay.
Not anti-aging, but aging
Yes,
better and not having those terrible symptoms.
Okay. What are some of the potential long-term effects of menopause weight that has been gained but not managed or dealt with as it happened?
So in the case of your adipose tissue, your body fat increasing, your chances of becoming diabetic is increased. And we see this so prolifically nowadays, how quickly that happens.
Yeah.
But your risk for cancer increases as well.
Okay.
So over the years, doctors or the medical fraternity have established that inflammation is the bedrock of all disease, whether it is cancer or heart disease or diabetes or osteopenia. It doesn't really matter what it is. You have to have some kind of systemic inflammation over a period of time for that to happen. So, you know, disease is not really a function. It is a function of aging, but it doesn't have to be that way if you're vigilant about the quality of the food you eat and the company you keep.
Yes.
That's a big one. You know, if you're going to surround yourself with negative people, you're going to buy into that.
Yeah.
It's very hard to pull yourself out of that rut. But it also doesn't require massive change, just a couple of small things.
And I think also if you do it consistently through life, you make the little changes as the
That's
changes
the
are
key.
needed so that you're in a better position when something more dramatic does happen.
Exactly, you've got resilience, and your key word there was consistency. So if we're consistently going to drink a bottle of wine every night, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
You know, but if you consistently get out of bed every morning and do some exercise and eat better, not perfect, but just better, you're going to see a massive difference. And that's really all it takes.
Absolutely. Now, if you had to give, in quite a tight answer, a few suggestions of ladies who may know that they are entering that period of life where menopause is likely to happen, what would you give them as a bit of advice to say, look, it's going to be okay, you can manage this, and also just maybe to get their minds right for this change that's coming?
So yes, it is inevitable, and I think we need to embrace the beauty of women at every age. You know, there's nothing nicer than a woman in her 50s and 60s who looks age appropriate and isn't trying to be something she's not. I mean, that's magnificent. So that is something to bear in mind. And if your self-esteem isn't happy with that, perhaps talking that through with a therapist is not a bad idea to sort of find your place and where you'd be happy with yourself. That's the first thing. The second thing is don't dive into a diet.
Okay.
You know, diets make people miserable and they're confusing because you're going to be hungry. And when you're hungry, you're going to make bad choices and you're not going to be happy. And most importantly is get a support base.
Yes.
Whether it is a group of friends of your own age who can support each other, or family or friends. You know, I think that's more important, is having someone to talk to and being able to, without judgment, just share your fears and share your vulnerability, and then you can be in a mind space where you can make better choices for yourself.
Absolutely. And I also think a support system so that you know that you're not necessarily on your own in this experience, because a lot of other people deal with it.
Everyone goes through it, but no one talks about it, and that's just a travesty, because you don't have to suffer.
Yeah, not necessary. Well, there you go. Thank you so much, Nikki. Always great to chat to you. Some great advice there.